And then another question. If one is sitting calmly and just noting the rising and falling abdomen without any mental formations, what else should he do further? So from this question, without any mental formation, I take it maybe what the yogi meant here, that the mind, there was no thinking or wandering mind or other mental objects. So they only mindful note rising and falling abdomen. So at the time, meditators should ensure that they can see a pair of processes clearly. Sometimes some meditators can mindful note rising, falling movements for a long time, but they cannot realize clearly the process of mindfulness. They only realize that there is one single process of mindfulness that has been mindful and note the movement of abdomens rising, falling, all the time. There's only one awareness of mindfulness that has been mindful and note the process of rising, falling movements for a long time. In that way, if you understand the practice vipassana meditation, can such meditators develop insight knowledge? Sometimes some meditators could concentrate their mind. The mind, you follow the movement rising, falling constantly for longer time, for longer time, and the mind is very calm, free from hindrances, and so on. Do you think can such meditators develop insight knowledge? As I explained earlier, or even the Dhamma talk, meditators have to see clearly a pair of processes. Then you only begin to gain some insight knowledge. For example, you realize the process of rising movements, then there's a process of awareness. When rising movement has disappeared, that awareness also will disappear. It won't stay on and note the next falling movements. If meditators can sharpen the mindfulness and able to realize a series of broken process movements. For example, they realize that there's a stage of rising, that means a process of rising movements. Then the process movement pass away. Then there's another process of rising movements. Then the second process movements also subject to passing away. Then they realize there's another process of rising movements. So at the time, how many processes of mindfulness will appear at the time? If you practice correctly, then you realize that there are three different processes of mindfulness that will arise dependent on the movements. When there's a first process movements, then the mindfulness will arise dependent on that movements. When the movements disappear, mindfulness definitely will subject to passing away. As I explained in the talk, that if the cause is not permanent, definitely the effect also not permanent. And when there's another process of rising movements, then there will be another process of mindfulness arise dependent on that movements. When that movements had passed away, that mindfulness also will pass away. So if meditators can proceed further in this way, definitely they will make more and more progresses in their practice, or even able to attain enlightenments. So meditators have to know the differences between vipassana meditation and samatha meditation. Sometimes some vipassana meditators have strong power of concentration. They can keep their mind stay with the movement rising falling. Sometimes they know the mind think of something, but they think that their mindfulness is still staying with the movement of rising falling. So in that way, that mindfulness is not active or a bit of a passive, or sometimes meditators exercise a strong control over the process of mindfulness. So even though they know, they realize the mind think of something, but they think that their mindfulness, they're still able to keep their mindfulness following the movements of rising falling. In the way, they are practicing the way like quite similar to samatha meditation. So if one sitting calmly and just noting the rising falling of the abdomen, they must realize that whether at the time that their practice inclines toward concentration or inclines towards the development insight knowledge. If they know that their practice is inclined towards insight knowledge, then definitely they will know how to proceed further.